We also don't have a lot on the agenda though. Second. Yeah. So first question is, what is the status of 1.7 release? I don't think Ken will be able to make it today, but I think we need to cut another RC before we cut a release.
The query front end fix.
Yeah.
Which query front end fix we are talking about?
So there was a case. So essentially, if you have a very large step, and when you split by 24 hours, assuming you have a step of like 20 hours, there could be only a single point in that window. And when that happens, the start time and end time will be same, and we were silently ignoring those points if they were cached. So this was a recent regression that's in master now.
I see.
Yeah. Cool. I think we should cut another RC, wait a day, and then just release it. At this point, I don't think we'll find more bugs.
Is the fix backported already in the release 1.7 branch or not yet?
It's there in 1.7.
Okay.
Cool. So moving on, I have a design doc that I just shared right before this call. So we talked about HA pairs desyncing in the last call, where the leader could fall behind. And if you restart Prometheus at that point, because if you want to fix that, the follower becomes the leader, and you lose all the data that the leader could not have sent before. So so I shared a design doc. It has 3 options. The first option is if a follower is sending data that the leader has not yet sent, send 500 errors so that the follower will keep on trying until the leader also has sent that. The other option is if a follower is sending data in the future, like 1 minute into the future compared to the leader, just switch replicas. The third option is to store everything and dedupe at query and compaction time, but that will just drive up the cost and everything too much. So that's kind of not a valid option.
So I've written things similar to this, like as just like remote write deduplicating proxies before, and I did a combination of the first two, where I would 500 for a while and then switch if it was just falling too far behind. Because otherwise you'll still lose some amount of data, just as
I think the problem of triggering alerts with the 500 is still there, right? If we mix the two approaches.
Is it just me, or are we hearing Marco twice?
There was something weird for sure, and I don't know if it's my not great internet in the mountains or something else.
I think we're hearing Marco twice for some reason, or it could just be me. I'm just confused.
Is there a way to not send 500 to force the retry? I mean, 500 seems a little bit of an excessive error code. If it's by design that we send it, it's kind of bad.
So there is one thing that we could do, which is my next point. How do we handle the new 429 error handling in Prometheus? So we could send a 429 with a retry after header, and this means the follower Prometheus will retry. And if we are sending too many 429s, we just switch at that point. I think that's better. Interesting. I did not consider a combination of 1 and 2. Yeah, I will talk to Chris after this and see what that entails, and I'll add a 4th point into the design doc.
Yeah. I can look up that code. Elijah would have access to it, so Elijah can could
that's the
ping here
DD
as well. Since that was stuff I wrote at Splunk before leaving.
That's the dedupe in that dedupe code is Zec
the
monitoring.
dedupe proxy that we have. So you take a look at that.
Cool. Yeah, I did not consider that. Let me add a 4th point and then like ping in the Cortex Slack again, and then we can take that up. Nice idea. Cool. So that's bringing me to my next point. Prometheus added a new functionality, which is off by default, but you can configure retry after option in remote write config. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. If a user is hitting 4 to 9 errors, and if we send a retry after header, we never drop that sample.
Correct right now. That's sort of the next step is we need to add, let's drop the samples after some set of rules. And there's about 10 different ideas of how that set of rules could be. I think the person who is working on that PR is writing up a proposal for trying to collect those ideas together and how to actually drop it. I think he said he was hoping to get to it this week, but if
Okay.
Ask him sometime in the next week or two if I don't see anything.
Yeah. Do we want to should we even tell our users to enable it? Because it's kind of common for us to rate limit users.
I would not suggest users of Cortex enable it. There are some systems that I've used that I would enable it because I've literally just have had proxies there that does this already. But it's mostly for things like we're sending to something that happens to be backed by Kinesis that might rate limit you for like a second, and then the next second it's fine.
Okay, that's fair. So users of Cortex won't enable it, and we will see how to handle it once we know how to what the drop behavior is.
Yeah. We can in Cortex, we could decide what should be like a 429 versus a 422. Like should those ingester, like you've reached your maximum series, should that be maybe a 422 instead? Or some other error code that might be better. You already changed it?
Yeah, it's 400, but if you
just
want
400,
to, I mean, if you think different status code is better, we change it.
I don't have strong feelings. Like I think 400 can mean this is badly formed, but I think people will get the idea pretty quick.
So we're basically at the end of the agenda.
Hey, it's Brian Worm here at Waveworks. I can update that we're now running the blocks storage, well, in everywhere in production, and running batch converting backwards. Oh yeah, I put up a PR for that for DynamoDB. Peter wrote. It's a really nice suite of programs, the blocks convert tools. They're kind of written to scale out to run different parts of the process in parallel. And once you get it going, it runs really nicely. But it was written for Bigtable only, so I ported the relevant bits to DynamoDB. So I'm looking forward to our Amazon bill dropping by about half.
Have you already shut down DynamoDB?
Have I what?
Have you already shut down DynamoDB? But I mean, have you already deleted the tools in DynamoDB?
So we have so I did the conversion at the end of last week. So we have effectively 6 days of data in S3 and 4 years of data in DynamoDB. So we're no longer writing to DynamoDB, but it'll take a while to batch convert. Well, the bulk of it is in the last 3 months. It'll take a couple of weeks probably to convert the 3 months worth, and then what would be slightly nicer is if we could go forwards in time to do that. There's only one date, right? In the code, there's a date. Like everything after this is one thing, and everything before this is another thing. Well, actually, we had the schema file. So you can have there's one date, and everything after that date is one thing, and everything before that date can be 20 different things, because we wrote that more flexibly. And it would probably make more sense to merge those two concepts. But yeah, I would actually rather convert the old data first, because it's less critical. But the way it's coded, I have to go backwards from when I started. These are all tedious details. Yeah, we only had one kind of massive blow up, which I don't really understand. Well, yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time debugging it. I rebooted the machine and went back to bed, and it hasn't happened again, which is not what I was expecting. Usually, if something blows up at once, it's going to blow up again.
What was the issue?
What was the what?
Issue.
Well, I don't know. I rebooted the machine, went back to bed. I mean, the symptom is the querier went up to 55 gigabytes. And
the querier?
Yeah, that took out the entire machine.
Memory, you mean?
Sorry?
It took all the memory of the machine?
Well, it's a 64 gig machine.
Okay.
The symptoms are the largest heap measurement was 55 gigabytes. And shortly after that, the whole machine was broken.
And you did not identify like a crazy query going on at that time?
Right. Yeah, that's not an easy task.
Yeah.
But actually, I didn't even try. I mean, like I said, what I went back to bed and expected that it would happen some more, and I'd have some more to try and figure out the pattern. But it only ever happened once.
I think it's pretty interesting because we have memory issues everywhere except the query. So we have memories in the store gateway. The query is not much different between the block storage and the chunk storage. It's where with this amount of change. We are experiencing high memory issues at query time in the store gate, which is something I'm currently also working on among other things. And high memory in the ingester, where we have a large number of tenants on a single ingester, which is something I think we are brainstorming on. But we are not actually experiencing high memory utilization in the query. So it would be interesting if okay, can't you hear me well? So I'm sorry, I have no idea what's happening. Let me change
it's a
my
bit
microphone.
max headroom. I don't know if that translates culturally.
This is a different microphone. Is it better? Yeah. So I bought a big microphone, which is broken, apparently. Yeah, I was just mentioning that, we didn't notice a significant difference in the memory utilization in the query when we switched between the two storages. We did for the ingester and the store gateway. That's the gist of
Yeah, well, the symptom is not like it used more memory. The symptom, like it sits there using 1 GB all day, and then suddenly it went to 55. You know, it's not. It's not like using more memory. It's a horrendous runaway bug that took out the entire machine.
Brian, in regards to your block, I'm going to call it block converter. Is that something you all just built in house? Is that up anywhere?
Yeah, it's pure.
Oh, okay, cool.
Well, so to be clear, Peter, I don't know how you pronounce his second name, whatever, Peter, at Grafana Labs wrote a whole suite of programs which go under the blocks convert name. I have written a little bit extra in one of them to allow it to work on DynamoDB, because Peter only had to get it to work on Google.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd be interested in taking a look at that.
Yeah, well, I posted the PR Monday or something. So you can probably find it.
Thank you.
There's also a guide in our docs. I put that in the chat here. I'll also put it in the.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, yeah. The guide is very helpful. I've got another PR just to add a few more nuggets to that and update it slightly. But I haven't posted that one yet.
Yeah. So I think we've done most of the work to we're running block storage now. I'd like to get all that old data into S3 as well now. So this could be helpful.
Oh yeah, I maybe caveat as well. I did schema v9 because that's the only, well, until you get back to 2016, that's the only data we've got. So yeah, if you're using v10 or 11 or something like that, there's a bit more work needed.
Yeah, and we need someone to review that PR. Unfortunately, I'm neither an expert of the chunk storage and DynamoDB, so I don't feel to be the right person to review that change. I think, Brian, if it works, I mean, you're already running it in production, basically. So why don't just we agree to merge it?
Yeah, it's more like lack of tests and lack of error checking. You know, I'm happy that someone else can take it and try it. We might want to just make sure that it's written in big letters that this is, you know, this is a program that's effectively been run once by one person. It might not work as well as some of the other bits of Cortex.
So this brings me to the question, given most people are running blocks, when should we deprecate chunks?
Did we not already deprecate it? I think the question is, when should we recommend blocks?
I think now, given like none of the maintainers are running chunks anymore.
Have we deprecated chunks? I mean, is there any statement in the documentation? I don't think so.
I don't,
Yeah.
not that I've seen.
So let's start recommending blocks. Let's remove the getting started guide of chunks or like hide it, because today if people try to get started, they see like 3 options.
It's even said chunk storage default right now.
Yeah, so we need to clean that up. So let's recommend blocks. Let's change the default to blocks without breaking users. I'm not sure how we can do that. 1 second. Yeah, this is a big topic.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, I can't find where we deprecated it. If we did, I thought maybe
We
it's
did
something else
not.
I'm thinking of.
We did not deprecate it. But we should. Yeah. But I kind of want to get some broad consensus, so I'll probably send a GitHub issue or PR, and once I have LGTM, we can start from all the maintainers. We can start that process. Are you seeing any query performance improvements or anything like that once you move to blocks?
Probably. I tried squinting at the charts. I mean, it's sort of hard to tell because you know, somebody trying to see how hard they can push it will change the average, or you know, change the P99 will move a lot if you have someone going, hey, can I look at 6 months of data now? So I mean, it certainly works way better than I first guessed. I know, I mean, since I first guessed, people have reassured me. I guess I wouldn't have converted all of production otherwise, but yeah, I mean, kind of conceptually, you have a bunch of gigabyte blocks on S3. And I've tried killing various caches, or you know, I've tried to stress the cold cache aspect of it, but it is very good at just, you know, bringing down enough to go answer the question and not bringing down the whole 100 gigabytes or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's some empirical evidence that somebody found a dark corner in terms of my 55 gigabyte heap. But they haven't found it again. Or, I mean, usually when someone's found something like that, they've got it on a 10-second retry. It's fun times. But that one only happened once. So yeah, I think the average is lower. I'm actually running very few queriers. Yeah, sorry, that was a kind of a consequence. So one querier took out the entire machine that it was running on. So if it wasn't for that, I would right now be running like lots of queriers to get a lot of parallelism. But I'm actually running very few queries, like 3, to kind of limit the blast radius. So it will actually speed up once I sort of lose the fear and bump that number up again.
Is it a multi-tenant cluster, right?
Oh yeah.
Have you considered shuffle sharding?
Huh?
Have you considered shuffle sharding?
Yeah, you know, one enormous change in a month.
Shuffle sharding can be enabled selectively on different paths. So you can enable on the write path, on the read path. In the read path, you can enable in the store gateway only or in the querier. So if you want to limit the number of concurrent queries a single tenant can run, you can enable shuffle sharding in the querier.
Okay. That's a good point.
But we still have the bug open where, like, if you crash a querier, then the shuffle sharding will reassign it to a new querier. So like if you have a tenant that is actually the root cause of your querier running out of memory and keeps running that query over and over, that's gonna not help. We've encountered that issue actually.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of we organizationally have got 4 years of experience of one thing blowing up in 100 different ways, and now we're running another thing and we have very little experience of that blowing up. So I kind of want to go cautiously. Experience all the different things blowing up.
Yeah, and there's still a lot to learn and break in the block storage. Even if I think all people here are now running it in production, I think we will still learn a lot about it, and I'm pretty sure we will continue to improve it for a long time.
We are still on chunk storage as well.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah, no worries.
Actually, I do have a stupid question. When you look at the charts, the ingesters grow and then they compact and then they grow again, and they all do that on the same cycle, and it's odd hours, like 1 p.m., 3 p.m., 5 p.m. Why?
Because go on.
No, we do that at UTC, like 2 hours aligned to Unix
I'm on
timestamp.
UTC.
So it should be even hours for you.
Yes, but even I can get that right.
Actually, no. So we let it go to 3 hours and then we cut the last 2 hours. It should still be even hours, but like we do that in Prometheus because now you can basically, if you have a block missing, you can take it from a different Prometheus and put it in here. If a block is corrupt and stuff like that, just aligning it to Unix timestamp helps a lot, at least in theory. And changing it could be a breaking change, so we don't want to touch that. Having said that, Marco and I were talking about like adding a jitter to this.
So if blocks are not aligned, the compactor, as we know it today, doesn't work. Because otherwise it will end up compacting all blocks into a big giant block and not keep compacted blocks
All right.
time range bounded. Obviously, this is yet another thing we can fix it, but will require significant changes in the TSDB compactor. Yeah, what we are thinking of is to add jitters. So basically, to not have compactors compacting the head at the same time, which is starting at the minute 0 every 2 hours, but spreading the workload across, I don't know, 30 minutes or something like this.
Right. Yeah, so I understand the compaction. Oh yeah, that reminded me of another thing. I want the bucket path name, like the first thing under the tenant name looks like a SHA, but not quite. Or can we put the date in that, or the date time or something like that in that path?
You mean in the block ID?
Yeah.
The first part of the block ID is the timestamp of when the block was kept.
Which base is it written in?
I don't remember which base is it, but it's the Unix timestamp in a base. I don't remember which one. And then the second part, the second 16 bytes is just a random value.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the ULID, but I don't remember which base is the encoding.
I mean, it just seems like that optimization is not worth it. Like encoding the date as 01 EYFJ.
It's a Crockford base 32, according to the specifications.
Oh, well, I'll post that as an issue.
When we started working on the block storage, almost an age ago, we had this idea. The problem is that the timestamp right now of the block is just the time when the block was cut. Even if you decode the ULID, you don't get the minimum maximum timestamp of samples within the block. So when we designed at the very beginning the block storage, we had this idea that to put in the path the minimum and maximum timestamp as well, so that just listing blocks in the bucket, we know which blocks to query given a specific given a query. Now I think this is no more an issue because we have introduced the bucket index. And this piece of information is already in the bucket index along with other information. And start polluting the prefix, the object prefix may not be much scalable, while in the bucket index, we have the ability to add more metadata for each block.
Well, it's not exactly polluting it, it's just writing it in a different encoding. Well, it will get longer by like 6 bytes or something.
Yeah, I understand this, but then it really depends. What do you want to get? Having the timestamp in a different encoding.
Well, like when I fire the thing up, like when I'm wondering what's going on, I can go to the console and S3 and go and look at a list of buckets. And so right now I get a bunch of meaningless text. And if we made this change, I'd get some indication of when it was working.
Yeah, my counter argument is that the S3 UI is not the best UI to explore blocks, and not because of the S3 UI, which is great, but because it's just a generic UI. Like the Thanos UI, Thanos has a web-based UI, which shows you the blocks over the time range in a nice way. I think that kind of UI would be better because you may display way more information than just what the S3 listing offers.
Yeah, I'm curious. Can you share a pointer to this Thanos UI?
Yeah, I write a link in the chat.
Thanks.
So yeah, it looks like we have a question in the chat. Running issues when storage gateway is taking a long time to start. Anyone know about that?
Yeah, we do. So yes, there are two reasons why the store gateway is very slow to start up. The first one is because it needs to scan the bucket to list all the blocks in the bucket. And this has been solved with the bucket index. Bucket index is an optional and still marked experimental feature, but we are running in production since more than a month at Profound Labs, which basically is a per tenant JSON file stored in the bucket, which is periodically updated by the compactor, containing information about the entire list of blocks, some metadata, and the deletion marks of each tenant. So when the store gateway, when the Cortex cluster is running with the bucket index enabled, the store gateway just read this bucket index instead of issuing list object operation against the object store. The second reason is that we have to download the index header, which is a subset of the index for each block. And this is a slow operation. And the only solution we have is enable sharding. So when you enable sharding, you horizontally spread the blocks, and so the index header loaded by store gateways to different replicas. That's how we handle it.
But like when you say it's taking a lot of time to start running, how long is it taking?
Yeah, this one basically yesterday, it's almost like 14 hours. So I enabled with the bucket index enabled, and still it's not come online actually.
Do you share this this GCS bucket with other users, or is it just for block storage, or do you also have chunks in them?
No, only block storage, but I have around 3 months of data is there actually, around 220 GB of data.
Huh.
How many blocks do you have there? How many tenants?
Sorry, how many?
How many tenants? How many different users are running your Cortex cluster with?
You mean number of tenants you are talking about?
Yeah.
It's fairly around 20, I guess, not more than 20 at this point of time.
20, 3 months, so it's...
3 months data.
Yeah, let's say 150 blocks per tenant, 20 tenants is 3,000 blocks. It's not that much. How long does it take to start the store gateways, and how many replicas do you have?
So I have 2 replicas. I'm running 3 storage gateways actually. So do you think we need more storage gateways and more replicas to handle this kind of load?
By replicas, you mean the replication factor is 2 and you're running 3 store gateways, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and could you repeat me, how long does it take to start up?
It was more than 14 hours actually. They would still not came online.
No, that doesn't look. I think that there's some issue somewhere. It's not expected to take such a long time. Could you open an issue sharing logs or I don't know, some metrics? Could you help us to understand what the store gateway is doing?
Yeah, sure.
While starting up.
Yeah, when I see the logs, it says basically there are connection timeouts in the memcache, but when I see the memcache metrics, all looks good actually. I don't see that much load on the memcache, but for some reason I don't know.
But if it's starting up, memcache is not used.
Memcache is using actually, but I don't know, some of the blocks, some of the times it's saying specifically time dot. I don't know. Is it because of too much load? It is because of the bucket scanning. It is taking too many connection timeouts. I'm not sure. Memcache connections.
So memcache is primarily used at query time to cache the index and the chunks. We have the metadata cache as well, but if you use the bucket index, the usage of the metadata cache is very low. I think it would be great if you could open an issue with the more logs possible, so I can take a look to better understand what's happening there.
Okay, sure, we'll do that.
Cool. We have 2 minutes left. Does anybody want to talk about anything? All right. See you all in 3 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.